My parents used my college fund to buy my sister a car and called it a smart choice. 3 months later, I walked into the shareholders meeting as the majority owner. They went pale. 3 months ago, my parents dipped into my college fund to buy my sister a car, and they called it a brilliant move. Fast forward to today. I walked into the shareholders meeting as the majority owner, and the room went silent. "That's a gorgeous car, Emma," my mother cooed while gliding her hand over the sleek red finish of my sister's brand new BMW. "You earned this with all your hard work." I stood in the driveway with my arms crossed, watching the small celebration unfold. Emma soaked up our parents' attention, swinging her new car keys around like they were pure gold. "I'm IA Mitchell, 24 years old, and my college fund is now history, spent on my younger sister's dream car. Isn't it perfect?" Emma squealed, her designer heels clicking on the concrete as she circled her new ride. The dealership had claimed it was the last one in this color, and of course it had to be hers. In our family, if Emma wants something, she gets it, even if it means taking what should have been mine. "Well, it was a smart decision," Dad declared, draping his arm around her shoulder. "Your sister wasn't going to use that money wisely anyway." I bit back a sharp retort. My plans for an MBA, after 3 years of full-time work while earning my business degree with honors and being accepted into 3 top programs, didn't seem nearly as important as Emma's desire for a luxury car. "Don't look so bitter, Olivia," Mom chided when she saw my expression. "Emma needs a proper car for her new job." Yes, the prestigious position as a junior marketing assistant that Dad set up for her at Mitchell Industries, the very company where I'd been climbing from the mailroom since I was 19, learning every part of the business. But clearly, Emma couldn't be expected to drive anything less than a BMW to her first real job. "Congratulations, Emma," I said in a neutral tone. She barely glanced my way, too busy snapping selfies with her new ride. "Thanks, maybe if you work hard you can afford one someday," she quipped. Our parents laughed at her little jab. They always enjoyed reminding me of my place in the family hierarchy. I checked my watch, grateful for an excuse to leave. "I should get going. I've got an early meeting tomorrow, even on a Saturday." Mom frowned. "Olivia, you work too much, it's not healthy." But they didn't care. They were already planning where to take Emma for a celebratory dinner. Driving to my reliable, used sedan, I caught Emma's voice drifting across the driveway. "Maybe we should reupholster the interior with white leather. The black is so boring." I managed a small smile as I started my car. Let them have their little party. In 3 months at the annual shareholders meeting, they'll see exactly what all those early mornings were for. What they never knew, and never bothered to ask, was that I hadn't simply been stuck in the mailroom at Mitchell Industries. I'd been playing a much longer game. It all started 5 years ago when I was 19 and new to the company. While sorting mail one day, I found an intriguing letter addressed to my father from his old business partner, Stanley Wright, a founding member who'd been bought out years ago after financial troubles. The letter was a desperate plea. Stanley was dying and needed to sell the shares he still held in the company. Shares Dad didn't even know existed. Stanley had kept them as a safety net, but now he needed cash for medical treatments. Instead of handing the letter off to my father, I took it home and called Stanley myself. What followed was 6 months of careful negotiations, using every penny I'd saved from after-school jobs and a small inheritance from Grandma. Stanley was relieved to find a buyer who would pay a fair price, and he was even happier that someone truly understood the company's roots. "Your father has forgotten where he came from," Stanley told me during our final meeting. "Mitchell Industries was built on hard work, not handouts. Maybe you can remind him someday." By the time I was 20, I quietly owned 15% of the company. But I wasn't done yet. Over the next 4 years, I tracked down other minor shareholders, former employees, early investors, anyone willing to sell. Every spare dollar went toward buying shares, always through a holding company I set up with the help of a trusted lawyer. Just last month, I hit my target: 51% ownership of Mitchell Industries. The paperwork was filed, the transfers complete, and in 3 months at the annual meeting, everything would go public. While driving home, my phone buzzed with a text from Emma. "Don't be jealous. Maybe if you hadn't wasted so much time in the mailroom, you'd have something to show for yourself." I ignored it. Let her enjoy her BMW. I had bigger things to worry about. The next morning, I arrived at the office before dawn, as I do every Saturday. Joe, the security guard, greeted me with a friendly nod. "Early again, Miss Mitchell," he said as he buzzed me in. "Your father knows you're here." I smiled. My dad doesn't know a lot of things. I made my way to my modest office, not the corner office I deserve given my stake, but one that fits someone who spent years in the mailroom. The walls were plastered with org charts, workflow diagrams, and detailed notes about every aspect of Mitchell Industries. While Emma partied through college and our parents indulged her every whim, I was learning, observing, and planning. I knew every strength and weakness of the company my grandfather built, and my father nearly ruined with his poor decisions and favoritism. Then my laptop pinged with an email from my lawyer confirming that everything was set for the shareholders meeting. I'd already lined up several key board members, people who had grown increasingly uneasy about my father's leadership but hadn't known there was another option. A knock on my door interrupted my thoughts. It was Sarah from accounting, one of the few who recognized my potential early on and became a mentor. "I saw Emma's new car on Instagram," she said, closing the door behind her. "Your college fund, huh?" I nodded. Sarah was one of the only people who knew the full truth about my situation. "Your dad's going to regret that decision," she said, sitting down across from me. "Have you told anyone?" "Not a word," I replied, swiveling my laptop to show her the latest financials. "Check this out, third quarter profits are down 15%, because Dad forced an exclusive contract with Emma's boyfriend's startup. The board's getting restless." Sarah studied the numbers, shaking her head. "It's worse than I thought. You sure you're ready for this?" I gestured at the walls lined with my research and plans. "I've been ready for years. The question is, are they ready for me?" "They're not," Sarah said with a small smile. "And that's what makes this so interesting." The next few hours were spent poring over reports and finalizing strategies. Around noon my phone buzzed again. A text from Emma. "Dad's taking me shopping for office furniture. He says I need something worthy of my new promotion." I raised an eyebrow at Sarah. "Did you hear about the promotion?" she asked with an eye roll. "Dad announced it yesterday. Emma's going to lead the new marketing division. Apparently, no experience is required." "Of course," I said, turning back to my work. Heaven forbid she actually earned something. The day flew by, and by the time I left the office, everything was set for the next phase of my plan. Walking to my car, I noticed Emma's BMW parked in the executive spot Dad had already reserved for her. 3 months, I thought. In 3 months everything will change. That evening, I received an invitation to a family dinner celebrating Emma's promotion. I almost skipped it, but after years of subtle digs and blatant favoritism, one more dinner wouldn't raise suspicions. I arrived at my parents' house right on time and stepped into a scene straight out of our 2-decade-long family gatherings. Emma was the center of attention in the living room, regaling our parents with tales from her first week at work, when I interjected, "You know, that dull HR woman said your presentation needed more pizzazz." She looked upset, but Dad immediately agreed. "Didn't you, Daddy?" He beamed. "Of course, Princess. You've got a natural knack for leadership." I took a seat quietly, wondering if anyone else noticed the irony of praising leadership in someone who'd never actually led anything. "Oh, Olivia," Mom said, finally noticing me. "You're here. We were just talking about Emma's brilliant ideas for restructuring the marketing department." "Fascinating," I murmured as I accepted a glass of wine. "And what experience do you have for these restructuring plans, Emma?" My sister's perfect smile wavered for a moment. "Well, I took a marketing class last semester, and Dad says sometimes fresh eyes matter more than experience." "How convenient," I said, taking a sip of wine. Then Dad warned in his familiar disappointed tone. "Don't be bitter just because your sister has vision. We can't all be natural leaders." I thought about the documents in my briefcase, the shares I'd quietly amassed, and the changes I was about to bring to Mitchell Industries. "No," I agreed softly. "We can't all be born leaders. Some of us have to earn it." The following 2 weeks blurred by in a whirlwind of preparation and careful observation. I watched from my modest office as Emma settled into her new role as marketing director, mainly by ordering expensive furniture and upsetting longtime employees. Sarah reported one morning that she made Jessica cry again. 20 years of marketing experience, and your sister told her she doesn't understand modern consumers because she thought our new campaign was over budget, she said. I glanced up from the quarterly reports. "Let me guess. Dad sided with Emma naturally?" Sarah's air quotes dripped with sarcasm as she added, "Half the marketing team is already updating their resumes." I scribbled in my planner. "Good employees are hard to replace, and I'll need them when I take control. Tell Jessica to hold off on any decisions until after the shareholders meeting. Things will be different then." Sarah gave me a knowing look. "By the way, your dad's been asking about the proxy votes coming in. He seems nervous." "He should be," I replied, turning my laptop to display the latest numbers. "The board isn't happy about last quarter's performance. Plus, Emma's promotion and the mass exodus of experienced staff form a perfect storm." Sarah studied the screen. "They're definitely going to fight back once they see what's coming." I thought of my college fund, now parked in the form of a red BMW in my sister's driveway. Let them try. That evening, while I was working late as usual, I heard voices from Dad's office. The door was slightly ajar, and I caught snippets of their conversation. "The board is getting restless," a male voice, probably James Henderson, a senior board member, remarked. "These nepotistic appointments have to stop. Emma is perfectly qualified," Dad insisted. "She's bringing fresh energy to the company. Fresh energy doesn't excuse alienating our top performers, and now I'm hearing whispers about someone snapping up shares." I couldn't help but smile as everything began to fall into place. The next morning, I arrived at the office to find Emma lounging on my desk like she owned the place. "There you are," she said with a smirk. "I need your help with something." I set my briefcase down carefully. "What do you need?" I asked. "You know, all that boring operational stuff," she replied, casually examining her manicure. I need you to redo these budget reports. They make my department look terrible. She shoved a folder my way. Inside were the marketing department's latest financial statements, and the numbers were even worse than I'd feared. I can't just alter financial reports, Emma, that'd be fraud, I countered. Rolling her eyes, she snapped. Don't be so dramatic. Just shift some numbers around. No one actually reads these reports anyway. I murmured quietly. But the board does, and she added with a huff, and so do I. Whatever, just fix it. And by the way, I'm taking your parking spot. Mine's too far from the entrance and these heels are not made for walking, she declared before sliding off my desk. After she left, I documented our conversation and added it to my growing file. There were only 2 more months until the shareholders meeting. In the weeks that followed, Emma's inexperience and entitled attitude sent shockwaves through the company. Longtime clients grew frustrated, employees began quitting, and the board's concerns mounted. My father, however, remained blissfully unaware, convinced that any criticism of Emma was just jealousy or resistance to change. He even organized a company-wide meeting to announce another expansion of her responsibilities. I sat in the back of the conference room as he proudly introduced Emma's innovative new initiatives. There she stood, soaking up the attention, while bewildered and angry employees exchanged glances. Then my father announced that Emma would represent Mitchell Industries at next month's industry conference in New York, declaring her fresh perspective, exactly what we needed to lure new investors. I jotted down a note. The conference was just a week before the shareholders meeting. Perfect timing. The day of Emma's presentation arrived. I watched the live stream from my office as she confidently took the stage, dressed in an outfit that costs more than most employees' monthly salaries. Mitchell Industries is entering a new era, she declared, clicking through slides that left financial analysts visibly alarmed. Under my leadership, we're going to revolutionize everything. I closed my laptop. I couldn't bear to watch any longer. In less than an hour, she had tanked our stock price and violated several SEC regulations. The shareholders meeting couldn't come soon enough. That evening, my father called an emergency family meeting. Emma had returned early from New York. Her presentation cut short when several major investors walked out. I checked my watch. The board started meeting an hour ago, I said. My father's face went pale. What? Why wasn't I informed? Because, Dad. I stood up, my voice steady. I now own 51% of Mitchell Industries, and the board just voted unanimously to make me CEO. The room fell silent. That's impossible, my father whispered. Is it? I asked. Have you ever wondered why Stanley's shares never showed up in your reports? Or why so many small shareholders have been selling over the past few years? I paused as Emma pointed a trembling finger at me. You planned this for 5 years, she accused. I confirmed. Ever since you started blabbing about revolutionizing the company, no one took you seriously. But ever since Dad made it clear that merit didn't matter as long as you were his favorite, you got everything. My mother protested. We gave you everything. I corrected her. You gave Emma everything, even my college fund. I built this company myself, one chair at a time, while you were too busy celebrating her mediocrity. My father's face reddened with anger. I won't allow this, you have no choice, he barked, heading for the door. The shareholders meeting is tomorrow at 9. I expect all of you to be there in professional attire. Emma, no Louboutin Vuittons. As I walked to my car, I could still hear Emma's whiny protests and my father's angry shouts echoing behind me. 5 years of swallowing insults and biding my time had led to this moment. Tomorrow everything would change. That bright, clear morning, I arrived at the office 2 hours early, savoring the calm before the storm. The conference room was set up meticulously, each seat marked with detailed financial reports that chronicled Mitchell Industries' decline under my father's mismanagement. Sarah met me at the door, a cup of coffee in hand. They're already here, she said. Your family. Your father's been trying to get into the main conference room for the past hour. I smiled and replied, good thing we changed the security codes last week. Are the board members ready? I confirmed their attendance as I noticed the press gathering in the lobby. Although I hadn't invited the media, news of Emma's disastrous presentation had leaked, along with rumors of a major leadership shakeup. Mitchell Industries was one of the largest employers in the region. What happened today would make headlines. Miss Mitchell, Joe, the security guard, called through the intercom. Your father is demanding to speak with you before the meeting. I checked my watch and let him in. Moments later, my father burst through my office door, his face flushed with fury. This ends now, Olivia. I don't know what game you're playing, but I'm still CEO of this company. I slid a document across my desk. You're not, Dad. The board voted yesterday. And you'd know that if you bothered to check your emails instead of obsessing over Emma's presentation damage control. He snatched the paper, his hands trembling. This is ridiculous. I built this company. Your grandfather built it. I corrected him calmly. You inherited it, and then you nearly destroyed it with poor management and nepotism. The shareholders have had enough. Shareholders, he scoffed. Yeah, I said as I pulled up the ownership records on my laptop. Would you like to see exactly how many shares you've lost over the years? How many people sold because they lost faith in your leadership? His face paled as he studied the screen. Stanley's shares, they were promised to stay in trusted hands, I said quietly. And they have. I've spent the last 5 years learning every aspect of this business from the ground up. More than you can say for your chosen successor. Emma has potential, sure, but she's all entitlement. I added. She proved that at the conference. Our stock dropped 15% in 1 hour. 15%? Because your precious princess couldn't be bothered to learn basic securities law before sharing confidential projections. He slumped into a chair, suddenly looking much older. Why didn't you tell me you were buying shares, building your position? Why all the secrecy? Would you have listened? Before he could finish, the office door burst open again. Emma stormed in, flanked by our mother. Fix this, Emma demanded. I already announced my plans for the company. I have a vision. Your vision tanked our stock price and violated SEC regulations, I replied calmly. The only reason we're not under investigation is that I spent all night doing damage control with our legal team. That's not fair, Daddy. Tell her it's not fair. Our father sat in stunned silence, still staring at the ownership records on my laptop. The shareholders meeting starts in 30 minutes, I said, standing up. You can either attend professionally and maintain some dignity, or you can make a scene and be escorted out. Your choice. Emma turned to our mother, who had been unusually quiet. Mom, say something. But for the first time, our mother really looked around my office. The detailed reports on the walls, the years of research and planning evident in every corner. Softly, she said, all those early mornings, all those late nights, we thought you were we never believed you could build something on your own. We didn't think you had ambition beyond being Emma's backup. She hesitated, then added weakly, I always knew you were smart. I couldn't help but retort. Business leadership isn't really considered suitable for women? It was funny. Emma's gender hadn't been an issue when everyone celebrated her unearned promotion. At that moment, the intercom buzzed. Sarah's voice cut through the tension. The shareholders are arriving, Miss Mitchell. I gathered my files. It's time. Are you coming? She asked. We made our way to the main conference room. Emma continued to protest while my father remained unnaturally silent, and our mother fidgeted nervously. The halls were packed with employees watching curiously. In the conference room, board members occupied the front row, many nodding as I entered, while shareholders filled the remaining seats and media hovered in the back. Every eye was on us as we took our places. I stepped up to the podium. Good morning and thank you all for coming. I began. Mitchell Industries has reached a critical juncture. For the next hour, I laid out the brutal facts. Declining profits, the exodus of talented employees, and the severe damage to our reputation. Each point was backed by detailed documentation, and I could see understanding nodding among the shareholders. When I reached the section on Emma's presentation, she tried to interrupt, but a sharp look from a board member silenced her. Yesterday, the board voted unanimously for new leadership, I concluded. As the majority shareholder and newly appointed CEO, I am implementing immediate changes to restore Mitchell Industries to its former excellence. The room erupted with questions, and I answered each one thoroughly, demonstrating a depth of knowledge that made my father sink lower in his seat. Finally, an elderly shareholder stood up. Miss Mitchell, what roles will your father and sister play in the restructured company? I met my father's eyes. They will be offered positions commensurate with their experience and qualifications, just like every other employee. Emma suddenly leapt up. This is ridiculous. I'm the face of Mitchell Industries. I have plans, I replied calmly. Your plans cost us millions in market value. Please sit down, I warned, or security will escort you out. Emma looked around desperately for support but found none. Even our mother was avoiding eye contact. When I opened the floor for the final vote on my appointment as CEO, the result was clear. The motion passed overwhelmingly, with only my father's and sister's few remaining seats dissenting. As the room cleared, my father approached the podium, his voice barely a whisper. Olivia, I underestimated you all these years. Yes, I said simply. You did. I then sat down at what had once been my father's desk, now mine. Looking out at the city full of possibility, I thought, time to get to work. The first month as CEO passed in a whirlwind. The media attention was intense. Headlines screamed, "Daughter's secret takeover saves family empire," across business journals. I gave exactly one interview, focusing solely on my vision for Mitchell Industries' future. Meanwhile, my family's reaction unfolded exactly as I'd expected. Emma launched a social media campaign painting herself as the victim, complete with tearful Instagram stories about betrayal, claiming she had to return the BMW and move back home with our parents once she could no longer afford her lifestyle. Luxury apartment. Your sister's devastated, my mother declared during one of her typical guilt trips. She truly believed Emma had a future there. I looked up from the quarterly projections I was reviewing and said, she does have a future, Mom, but she needs to earn it. Just like everyone else in our family. That didn't stop you from using my college fund, I added calmly. My mother flinched. That was different, she mumbled. Yes, it was because I did something about it, I replied before turning back to my work. Now, if there's nothing else, I have a company to run. The changes I implemented were sweeping yet strategic. First, I reinstated employees who had left because of Emma's mismanagement, including Jessica from marketing, who now headed the department that Emma had nearly destroyed. It's different here now, Jessica commented during a staff meeting. People are valued for their contributions, not their connections. Our company culture shifted rapidly. Merit-based promotions, transparent communication, and clear accountability became the norm. The stock price soon followed, steadily climbing as investor confidence returned. My father tried to challenge my leadership by calling an emergency board meeting to question my decisions. She's too inexperienced, he argued, insisting I was making changes too quickly. James Henderson, a senior board member, just laughed. In 1 month, your daughter has achieved more than you did in the past 5 years. The numbers speak for themselves, he said, pointing to the latest financial reports. Profits up 20%, improved employee retention, and restored client confidence. The vote to keep me in charge was unanimous. After the meeting, my father lingered in the boardroom. I still don't understand, he said quietly. How did you learn all this? I replied, I paid attention, gathering my files every day for 5 years while you were busy grooming Emma for a role she never earned. I learned everything from the mailroom to the boardroom, studying every aspect of this company. The real question is, why didn't you notice? He had no answer. 3 months into my tenure as CEO, I received an unexpected visit from Stanley Wright, my father's old partner who had sold me his shares. I've been following the news, he said as he settled into a chair in my office, the very same room where my father once dismissed my ambitions. You've done exactly what I hoped you would. The company needed change, I replied simply. He smiled and continued. But more than that, it needed someone who understood its true value. Your grandfather built this company on principles, hard work, merit, and integrity. Your father forgot those principles, but you embodied them. I thought back on the long years of careful planning, silent work, and patient preparation. I had learned from the best. Speaking of teachers, Stanley leaned forward. I hear you're starting a scholarship program? I nodded. The Mitchell Industries Future Leader Scholarship will provide full college funding for employees' children who demonstrate academic excellence and a strong work ethic. We've already selected our first 10 recipients. With a knowing look, he added, your mother must love that. I allowed myself a small smile. She called it wasteful and said I should focus on family first. And what did you tell her? He asked. I said I'm focusing on family, the Mitchell Industries family. Every employee here is part of building our future. After Stanley left, I strolled through the office floors to see the changes firsthand. 6 months had transformed the atmosphere. Energetic yet focused, with teams collaborating effectively and projects moving forward smoothly. Sarah fell into step beside me. You'll never guess who applied for an entry-level accounting position, she said. Who? I asked. Emma, she replied. I stopped in my tracks. Really? Sarah nodded. She even used your father's name as a reference. Want to see her application? It's in my office. I reviewed Emma's resume. It was sparse with no real experience or relevant skills. Just her incomplete marketing degree and a brief, disastrous stint as our marketing director. When I asked if she had followed the proper application process, Sarah confirmed, surprisingly, yes, although she did try to skip the skills assessment, claiming it was beneath her station. I paused to think, then said, we'll process her application like any other candidate. If she meets the basic qualifications, she gets an interview. If not, she'll receive the standard rejection letter we send to every unqualified applicant. That evening, while I worked late reviewing expansion plans, a knock at my door revealed my mother. You look tired, she said, hovering in the doorway. You work too hard, someone has to. I replied without looking up from my documents, Emma's application. She really needs this job. Her savings are running out, and your father's consulting business isn't doing well. I finally met her eyes. Then she should ensure her application shows she's qualified for the position. Your sister, she whispered. Yes, I agreed. And for years that was enough for this company. Not anymore. My mother sank into a chair. I don't understand you anymore. Where is this coldness coming from? It's not coldness, Mom, it's professionalism. Emma can earn her place here, just like everyone else did, just like I did. 2 days later, Emma's application was processed. She failed to meet 3 of the 5 basic qualifications, and the standard rejection letter was sent out. Sarah asked if I agreed. I nodded, adding details about our internship program and suggesting courses at the local community college, just like we do for every underqualified applicant. That afternoon, Emma's response was predictable. Angry social media posts about sisterly betrayal and family loyalty. I didn't reply. Instead, I focused on our latest initiative, a partnership with local colleges to provide work-study opportunities for business students, offering real experience earned through merit and hard work. 6 months turned into a year. Under my leadership, Mitchell Industries flourished. expanding into new markets and building a reputation for excellence and innovation. Meanwhile, my father's consulting business struggled and eventually folded. Swallowing his pride, he approached me about a position. "I have decades of experience," he said, sitting across from my desk. "Yes," I replied. "But the company has changed. Are you willing to adapt? You'll need to report to managers who might be younger than you." Earning respect rather than demanding it. He stared at me for a long moment. "You really have built something remarkable here," he admitted. That night, as I prepared to leave the office, I passed the wall of company photos in the lobby. My grandfather's portrait hung in the center, his expression serious yet kind. Next to it now hung a new photo of me at the shareholders meeting taking my place as CEO. Sarah appeared beside me. "Your grandfather would be proud of the company you've built," she said, "of restoring what he started." I touched his portrait gently. "Merit over privilege, excellence over entitlement, that's what he believed in, and that's what you've helped restore." Sarah smiled. "Look at what it's built. I didn't just save a company. I transformed it, creating a place where everyone has the opportunity to earn their success, just as I did." My phone buzzed with an email from the scholarship committee. Next year's applications were coming in, each one representing someone ready to work for their dreams. Just like I was all those years ago in the mailroom, preparing for the day I would earn my place at the top. The future is bright, built on merit, not manipulation, on earning success, not entitlement, and on justice served not coldly, but with unwavering principles.